year 2245 marked humanity's first encounter with extraterrestrial life, an event that would forever change the course of history. An immense alien ship, carrying the formidable Zaraki species, emerged in Earth's orbit with clear hostile intentions. Within hours, global defense networks were on high alert, and Captain Mark Ellis was summoned to command the Earth's response. In the secure operations room at the United Nations Space Defense Headquarters, Mark met with his team. Lieutenant Commander Rajiv Singh, a tactical operations expert, and Dr. Emily Santos, the lead scientist in alien technology. The room buzzed with tension as they assessed the threat. "Mark, these are not your everyday visitors," Emily began, pointing to the live feed showing the colossal ship. "Their technology is decades, maybe centuries ahead of ours. We need a plan that accounts for their advanced capabilities." Mark nodded, his gaze fixed on the screen. "Rajiv, what are our options?" Rajiv shuffled through the digital blueprints on his tablet. "We have our orbital satellites that could be repurposed to create a temporary barrier. It's risky, but it might buy us some time to understand their tech better." "Let's set up the satellites then," Mark decided swiftly, "and keep our communication lines open. If they make a move, I want to know immediately." The team worked through the night, coordinating with space stations and ground forces worldwide. Mark paced before the giant screens, watching as each satellite moved into position. Suddenly, a transmission crackled through. "Captain Ellis, we have a message from the Zaraki ship," announced the communications officer. "On screen," Mark commanded. The alien leader appeared, his features harsh and imposing. "Humans of Earth, surrender your planet or face destruction. You have 24 hours to comply." Mark's jaw clenched. "This is Captain Mark Ellis of the United Nations Space Defense. Earth will not surrender. We are prepared to defend ourselves." The alien leader smirked. "Very well, human. Prepare for war." As the screen went dark, tension surged through the room. Rajiv turned to Mark. "What's our move, Captain?" "We fight," Mark stated firmly. "Emily, I need you to work on deciphering their technology. Any weakness you find could be crucial." "Understood, Mark," Emily replied, her eyes already scanning through the data pouring in. Rajiv nodded, his expression determined. "And I'll coordinate our defenses. We'll show them that Earth is not just another conquest." Through the long hours that followed, as Earth prepared for the impending assault, Mark felt the weight of his role. He wasn't just fighting for his planet. He was fighting to preserve the freedom and survival of humanity itself. As dawn broke over the horizon, a new chapter in human history was about to be written, one where Earth stood united against a common enemy, ready to prove their worth in the cosmos. As dawn illuminated the skies above Earth's United Nations Space Defense Command, Captain Mark Ellis and his team prepared for the imminent alien assault. The atmosphere was charged with a grim determination. Mark convened a meeting with his core team: Lieutenant Commander Rajiv Singh, Dr. Emily Santos, and newly introduced Major Alex Johnson, an expert in electronic warfare. Their focus was clear: to finalize the defense strategy against the Zaraki's anticipated first strike. "Let's go over the plan one more time," Mark started, addressing his team in the command center, filled with the hum of computers and urgent communications. "Alex, what's the status on the electronic countermeasures?" Major Johnson adjusted his glasses, reviewing the latest data on his screen. "We've rigged our satellites to disrupt their navigation as soon as they enter the lower orbit. It should give us some time to hit them hard while they're disoriented." Emily chimed in. "I've analyzed the preliminary data on their shield technology. There's a pattern in the frequency they use. It's advanced but not adaptable on the fly. We can exploit this." Rajiv looked up from the tactical display. "Perfect, Emily. I'll have our missile teams ready to strike with the modified payloads as soon as you disrupt their shields." Mark nodded in approval, then turned his focus to communication. "Keep the lines open with all units. I want updates every 5 minutes. We can't afford any delays." As the alien ship began its descent towards Earth, the team watched tensely from their monitors. The first phase of the defense was triggered, satellites repositioning to create a barrier of interference in the alien's path. "Electronic countermeasures in 3, 2, 1. Mark," Alex announced. The room held its breath until reports confirmed the initial success. "Their formation is breaking," a technician shouted. Cheers broke out, but Mark remained focused. "Prepare for the second phase. Fire on my command," he ordered, his voice steady. Emily monitored the alien shield frequencies, waiting for the precise moment. "Now, Rajiv, their shields are fluctuating." Rajiv coordinated with the missile teams globally. All units, fire! The screen lit up with the trajectories of dozens of missiles arcing towards the disoriented alien fleet. The command center watched as each missile found its mark, causing explosions that lit up the sky. Despite their initial success, Mark knew this was just the beginning. Stay sharp, everyone. They'll regroup quickly. Alex, keep jamming their systems. Emily, look for any changes in their shield pattern. Rajiv, prepare for a potential ground assault. As the debris from the initial skirmish floated in orbit, the team prepared for the next wave of the battle. They had won the first encounter, but the war was far from over. The remainder of the day was a blur of activity. Mark coordinated Earth's defenses from the command center, rallying his team and the world's military forces for what might come next. The resolve of his team was clear. They would use every tool at their disposal to protect their home. The calm before the storm was shattered as reports of alien landings poured in from around the globe. The Zaraki, determined to capture Earth's key cities, initiated a full-scale ground invasion. Captain Mark Ellis knew that this battle would test humanity's resolve and ingenuity like never before. In the command center, Mark assembled his team. Lieutenant Commander Rajiv Singh, Dr. Emily Santos, and Major Alex Johnson. Their faces reflected the gravity of the situation. Rajiv, give us the rundown, Mark ordered, his voice steady but urgent. Rajiv pointed to the global map displayed on the large screen. The Zaraki have landed in 5 major cities: New York, London, Tokyo, Rio de Janeiro, and Johannesburg. Their strategy seems to be a blitzkrieg-style assault aimed at overwhelming our defenses quickly. Mark nodded, considering their options. Emily, what can we expect from their ground forces? Emily, reviewing the data, replied, They're using heavily armored units supported by advanced drones. Their technology is superior, but they lack familiarity with our terrain and urban environments. We can use that to our advantage. Alex, can we disrupt their communications and drone controls? Mark asked. Alex looked up from his console. We've been working on jamming their frequencies. It won't be perfect, but it should cause enough confusion to give our forces a fighting chance. Mark turned to his team. All right, here's the plan. We split our resources to fortify these cities. We'll use guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run strategies, and leverage the urban terrain to counter their superior firepower. Rajiv, you coordinate the efforts in New York and London. Emily, you handle Tokyo and Rio. Alex, you take Johannesburg and work on disrupting their drones. Each member of the team nodded, quickly moving to relay orders and mobilize troops. Mark himself would oversee the operation, coordinating between the cities and ensuring that each strategy adapted to the evolving battlefield. The next few hours were chaotic. Reports came in of intense firefights, buildings reduced to rubble, and brave resistance from both military and civilian fighters. Mark stayed in constant communication with his team, guiding them through the shifting tides of battle. In New York, Rajiv orchestrated an ambush in Central Park, luring Zaraki units into a trap using a combination of decoy signals and strategically placed explosives. The alien forces found themselves surrounded and disoriented, leading to a crucial victory for the defenders. In Tokyo, Emily utilized the city's dense infrastructure to launch surprise attacks from hidden vantage points. Her tactics forced the Zaraki into narrow streets and alleys, where their larger numbers were less effective. The city's defenders fought with a fierce determination, inspired by Emily's leadership. In Johannesburg, Alex's efforts to jam the Zaraki's drone communications paid off. The drones, unable to receive orders, became erratic, crashing into each other and even attacking their own troops. This chaos allowed human forces to gain the upper hand and push back the invaders. Despite these victories, the situation remained dire. The Zaraki were relentless, and their technological edge was formidable. Mark knew that they needed a decisive blow to turn the tide. As night fell, Mark called his team for a final push. We've done well, but the Zaraki are regrouping. We need to hit them hard and fast before they can recover. Rajiv, focus on disabling their command center in New York. Emily, target their supply lines in Tokyo. Alex, keep disrupting their drones and communications in Johannesburg. The coordinated assaults were executed with precision. Rajiv's team infiltrated the Zaraki command center, planting charges that crippled their operations. Emily's forces intercepted supply convoys, cutting off essential resources. Alex's jamming efforts continued to sow confusion among the alien ranks. By dawn, the tide had turned. The Zaraki, unable to sustain their offensive, began to retreat. Earth had won the first major battle of the invasion, But Mark knew this was only the beginning of a long and brutal conflict. As the dust settled, Mark and his team regrouped. They had proven that humanity could stand against a technologically superior foe, but the cost had been high. The battle for Earth was far from over, and they would need every ounce of their courage and ingenuity to continue the fight. The victories in New York, Tokyo, and Johannesburg had given humanity a glimmer of hope, but Captain Mark Ellis knew the Zaraki were far from defeated. As Earth's forces regrouped, it became clear that a strategic offensive was necessary to maintain the upper hand. Mark stood before his team in the command center, which was abuzz with activity. Lieutenant Commander Rajiv Singh, Dr. Emily Santos, and Major Alex Johnson were at their stations, ready for the next phase. "All right, team, we need to push them back before they can regroup," Mark began. "Rajiv, any updates on their positions?" Rajiv brought up a holographic map. "Their fleets are gathering near the Pacific Rim and Eastern Europe. They're reinforcing their ground troops with additional units. We have a narrow window to strike before they solidify their defenses." "Emily, have you identified any weaknesses in their new formations?" Mark asked. Emily nodded, scrolling through her data. "Yes, their supply lines are vulnerable. They're heavily reliant on centralized hubs for energy and munitions. Disrupting these will cripple their ability to sustain prolonged engagements." "Alex, can we target these hubs with our current capabilities?" Mark inquired. Alex reviewed his console. "We've enhanced our drone capabilities and missile systems. Coordinated strikes on these hubs are feasible, but timing and precision are critical." "Good," Mark said, formulating the plan. "We'll split our forces into two main groups. Rajiv, you'll lead the strike on the Pacific Rim hubs. Emily, you'll handle Eastern Europe. Alex, you'll coordinate the drone and missile support for both operations." The team quickly mobilized. Troops and equipment were dispatched to the designated regions, with Mark overseeing the entire operation. The coordinated strikes required meticulous timing and communication. Hours later, the operation commenced. Rajiv's team, operating out of a base in Australia, launched an aerial assault on the Pacific Rim hubs. Their advanced drones, now equipped with stealth technology, navigated through Zaraki defenses, delivering precision strikes that decimated supply lines and energy facilities. Meanwhile, Emily's forces in Eastern Europe executed a series of ground and air attacks. Using guerrilla tactics honed in previous skirmishes, they infiltrated Zaraki-controlled areas and planted explosives at key supply hubs. The synchronized detonations caused massive disruptions, leaving the alien forces in disarray. In the command center, Alex monitored both operations, providing real-time adjustments and support. "Rajiv, we've detected a counterattack forming to the south. Redirect your drones to intercept." "Copy that," Rajiv responded, quickly adjusting his strategy. The drones engaged the Zaraki reinforcements, buying crucial time for human ground forces to consolidate their gains. Emily's voice crackled over the comms. "Mark, we've secured the primary targets, but we're encountering heavy resistance in the secondary zones." "Hold your positions," Mark replied. "Alex, divert additional missile support to Emily's location." As the battles raged on, Mark coordinated the efforts with precision, ensuring that each team received the support they needed. The relentless assaults on the Zaraki supply lines began to show results. Reports of diminishing alien resistance and increased confusion among their ranks flooded in. By the end of the day, the tide had turned significantly. The Zaraki forces, now struggling to maintain their offensive due to the crippling of their supply chains, were forced to retreat from several key positions. In the aftermath, Mark and his team convened to assess the situation. "We've dealt them a severe blow, but we can't get complacent," Mark cautioned. "Their next move will be desperate, and we need to be ready." Rajiv, Emily, and Alex nodded in agreement. The success of their coordinated strikes had proven that humanity could adapt and counter the alien threat, but the war was far from over. Each victory brought them closer to their ultimate goal, driving the Zaraki off Earth for good. As they prepared for the next phase of the conflict, the team knew that their combined efforts and unwavering determination would be crucial in the battles to come. Mark stood by his team, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, determined to protect their home at all costs. "I apologize for that. I'll rewrite Chapter 5 to be concise and fit within the 4,538 character limit. The crippling of the Zaraki supply lines had given humanity a fighting chance, but Captain Mark Ellis knew the war was far from won. Intelligence reports indicated that the alien fleet was regrouping for a major offensive in the Atlantic, aiming to cut off global communication and transport routes. This was their attempt to regain control. Mark called his core team into the command center. Lieutenant Commander Rajiv Singh, Dr. Emily Santos, and Major Alex Johnson were ready for their next challenge. "Listen up, everyone," Mark began, addressing the tense room. "The Zaraki are planning to launch a massive assault from the Atlantic. If they succeed, they could isolate our continents and cripple our global defenses." Rajiv studied the data on his screen. "Their fleet is gathering off the coast of Bermuda. We estimate they have several carriers and a large number of support ships." Emily added, "Their underwater capabilities are impressive. They might use submersibles to attack our coastal cities and ports." Mark turned to Alex. "What's our status on countermeasures?" Alex pulled up a tactical display. "We've deployed sonar buoys and underwater drones to track their movements. Our submarines are armed with torpedoes designed to penetrate their hulls, but we need to coordinate our attacks perfectly." "All right," Mark said, formulating the strategy. "We'll launch a multi-pronged assault. Rajiv, you lead the aerial and naval units. Emily, you coordinate the ground defenses along the coastlines. Alex, focus on cyber warfare and electronic countermeasures to disrupt their communications." The team sprang into action, mobilizing troops and equipment. Mark oversaw the operation, ensuring all units were prepared for the impending battle. As dawn broke over the Atlantic, the first wave of Zaraki ships appeared on the horizon. Rajiv's forces launched from aircraft carriers, sending fighter jets and bombers to intercept the alien fleet. The sky erupted in a cacophony of missile trails and explosions as human aircraft engaged the Zaraki with everything they had. Emily's coastal defenses, equipped with long-range artillery and missile batteries, opened fire. The shorelines of Europe and North America became fortresses, bristling with weaponry aimed at repelling the alien invaders. Her strategic placement of defensive positions ensured maximum coverage and effectiveness. Underwater, Alex's drones and submarines engaged the Zaraki submersibles. The battles beneath the waves were fierce, with torpedoes and depth charges illuminating the dark ocean depths. His cyber warfare units launched attacks on the Zaraki's communication networks, causing disarray and confusion among their ranks. Mark coordinated the multi-theater operation from the command center. "Rajiv, focus your fire on their carriers. If we can take those out, their fleet will be significantly weakened." "Copy that," Rajiv responded, directing his squadrons to concentrate their attacks on the massive alien carriers. The coordinated strikes began to take a toll on the Zaraki fleet, with several carriers crippled or sinking. "Emily, how are the coastal defenses holding?" Mark asked. "We're holding the line, but they're relentless," Emily replied. "We need more support to keep them from breaking through." "Alex, divert some of your drones to support Emily's position," Mark instructed, "and keep up the pressure on their comms." As the battle raged on, the Zaraki fleet found itself outmatched by the coordinated human resistance. Human ingenuity and relentless tactics began to turn the tide. Reports of destroyed Zaraki ships and retreating forces started coming in. By nightfall, the alien fleet was in full retreat. The combined efforts of air, naval, and coastal defenses had dealt a devastating blow to the Zaraki's Atlantic offensive. Mark and his team gathered in the command center, exhausted but triumphant. "We did it," Mark said, his voice filled with pride. "But we need to stay vigilant. They'll come back, and we need to be ready." Rajiv, Emily, and Alex nodded. They had managed to repel the alien assault, but the war was not over. The Battle of the Atlantic had shown the strength of coordinated human effort, but it was clear that the Zaraki would not give up easily. As they prepared for the next challenge, Mark and his team knew that each victory brought them closer to securing Earth's future. The fight was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever came next with unwavering determination. After the decisive victory in the Atlantic, Captain Mark Ellis knew that humanity had gained a significant advantage, but the war was far from over. The Zaraki were still a formidable foe, and their footholds on Earth needed to be eradicated to ensure lasting peace. Mark gathered his core team for a new offensive strategy aimed at reclaiming occupied territories. In the bustling command center, Mark addressed his team. Lieutenant Commander Rajiv Singh, Dr. Emily Santos, and Major Alex Johnson. Their faces showed a mix of determination and fatigue, knowing the road ahead would be tough. "Team, our next objective is to push the Zaraki out of every stronghold they have on Earth," Mark began. "Rajiv, what's our current intel on their positions?" Rajiv pointed to the holographic map. "The Zaraki have fortified positions in key locations: Berlin, Cairo, Sydney, and Mumbai. They've set up heavily defended bases in these cities." Emily added, "Their defenses are robust, but they're spread thin. We can exploit their need to defend multiple fronts simultaneously." "Alex, any updates on their communication systems?" Mark asked. Alex nodded. We've continued our cyber warfare efforts. Their comms are still compromised, giving us an edge in coordination. We can launch simultaneous attacks to overwhelm their defenses. Good, Mark said, formulating the plan. Rajiv, you'll lead the assault on Berlin and Cairo. Emily, you take Sydney and Mumbai. Alex, maintain our cyber attacks and provide support where needed. I'll oversee the overall operation. The team quickly mobilized, coordinating with global forces to prepare for the multi-pronged assault. The goal was clear: reclaim Earth from the alien invaders. The assaults began at dawn. In Berlin, Rajiv's forces launched a surprise attack, using the city's urban landscape to their advantage. The tight streets and historic buildings provided cover for guerrilla tactics. Rajiv's unit managed to breach the Zaraki defenses and push them out of key areas. In Cairo, Rajiv coordinated with local resistance fighters, utilizing their knowledge of the terrain to launch effective hit-and-run attacks. The desert and the ancient city's labyrinthine streets became the setting for fierce battles, eventually leading to the liberation of Cairo. Meanwhile, Emily led her forces in Sydney. The city's coastline provided a strategic advantage for launching amphibious assaults. Emily's troops, supported by naval units, stormed the Zaraki strongholds with precision. The combination of sea and land attacks caught the aliens off guard, leading to their retreat. In Mumbai, Emily's forces employed a mix of traditional combat and innovative tactics. The bustling metropolis became a battleground where every street and building was contested. Emily's strategic use of drones and ground units managed to outmaneuver the Zaraki, forcing them to abandon their positions. Throughout these battles, Alex's cyber warfare teams worked tirelessly to disrupt Zaraki communications and control systems. Their efforts created confusion and disarray among the alien ranks, making coordinated defense nearly impossible for the Zaraki. Mark, overseeing the operations from the command center, ensured that each assault was synchronized and supported. Rajiv, how's Berlin? He asked through the comms. Berlin is secure, moving on to reinforce Cairo, Rajiv reported. Emily, status on Sydney? Mark inquired. Sydney is ours, moving to assist Mumbai, Emily responded, her voice steady despite the intensity of the battle. As the day progressed, reports of victory came in from all fronts. The coordinated efforts and relentless human spirit had led to significant gains. By nightfall, the Zaraki strongholds were dismantled and their forces were in full retreat. Mark and his team regrouped in the command center, exhausted but resolute. We've done it again, Mark said, his voice filled with determination. But we must stay vigilant. This war is not over until every Zaraki soldier is off our planet. Rajiv, Emily, and Alex nodded in agreement. They had achieved another crucial victory, but they knew the fight was far from finished. Each battle brought them closer to liberating Earth entirely. As they prepared for the next phase, Mark and his team understood that their unwavering determination and strategic brilliance would continue to be vital in the struggle ahead. The fight to reclaim Earth was ongoing, and they were ready to see it through to the end. The tide of war had turned in humanity's favor, but Captain Mark Ellis and his team knew the Zaraki would launch one last, desperate offensive. Reports indicated that the remaining alien forces were converging for a final, all-out assault on Earth's defenses. The battle to end all battles was imminent. Mark stood in the command center, surrounded by his core team, Lieutenant Commander Rajiv Singh, Dr. Emily Santos, and Major Alex Johnson. The atmosphere was tense but resolute. Team, this is it, Mark began, his voice steady. The Zaraki are throwing everything they have at us. We need to hold our ground and push them back once and for all. Rajiv reviewed the latest intel. They're massing their forces in orbit, preparing to strike multiple locations simultaneously. This is their last stand. Emily added, We've detected massive energy signatures. They're deploying their heaviest artillery and advanced units. We need to be ready for anything. Alex, how are our defenses? Mark asked. Alex adjusted his glasses. We've reinforced our orbital defenses and ground-based missile systems. Our cyber units are on high alert, ready to disrupt their communications and control systems. Mark nodded. All right, here's the plan. Rajiv, you'll lead the orbital defenses. Emily, you coordinate the ground forces. Alex, continue your cyber warfare efforts and provide real-time support. I'll oversee the entire operation. As the Zaraki fleet approached, Earth's defenses were primed and ready. The skies filled with the hum of engines and the glow of weapon systems as both sides prepared for the inevitable clash. All units, this is Captain Ellis. Mark's voice echoed through the comms. Today, we fight for our home, our future. Hold the line and give them everything you've got. The first wave of Zaraki ships descended from orbit, met by a barrage of missiles and laser fire from Earth's orbital defenses. Rajiv's forces engaged the enemy with precision, intercepting incoming ships and neutralizing their heavy artillery. "Keep them at bay," Rajiv commanded, directing his squadrons to target the lead Zaraki ships. Explosions lit up the sky as alien vessels were destroyed one by one. On the ground, Emily's forces prepared for the impending invasion. Troops and artillery were strategically placed in key locations, ready to repel the alien ground assault. The tension was palpable as they awaited the first sign of the enemy. "Incoming!" a soldier shouted as the Zaraki drop pods began to rain down. Emily coordinated the defense, ensuring each unit was ready to respond. "Hold your positions and focus your fire," Emily ordered, her voice calm amidst the chaos. The ground shook with the impact of the drop pods, and the battle erupted with ferocity. Meanwhile, Alex's cyber units worked tirelessly to disrupt the Zaraki's communications and control systems. "We're in their network," Alex reported, "disrupting their command protocols now." The alien forces, already disoriented by the fierce resistance, struggled to maintain cohesion as their systems were hacked and their commands disrupted. This confusion allowed Earth's defenders to gain the upper hand. Mark monitored the battle from the command center, his eyes darting between the various displays. "Rajiv, how's the orbital front?" "We're holding, but they're relentless," Rajiv replied. "We need more support to keep them from breaching our defenses." "Emily, status on the ground?" Mark inquired. "We're pushing them back, but it's a brutal fight," Emily responded. "Every inch is contested." "Alex, keep the pressure on their systems," Mark instructed. "We can't let them regroup." As the battle raged on, Earth's forces managed to hold their ground. The combined efforts of orbital, ground, and cyber defenses created an impenetrable shield that the Zaraki couldn't break. Hours passed, and the intensity of the fighting began to wane. The Zaraki, realizing their efforts were futile, started to retreat. Cheers erupted from the defenders as the alien ships pulled back and fled into the depths of space. Mark and his team gathered in the command center, exhausted but victorious. "We did it," Mark said, his voice filled with relief and pride. "We've defended our home." Rajiv, Emily, and Alex nodded, their faces showing a mix of exhaustion and triumph. They had stood against the alien onslaught and emerged victorious. As the dust settled, Mark knew that while the immediate threat had been repelled, the war was not yet over. The final stand against the Zaraki had given humanity a hard-fought victory, but the scars of war were evident across the globe. Captain Mark Ellis and his team knew their work was far from over. The task of rebuilding and ensuring lasting peace required their continued vigilance and leadership. In the bustling command center, Mark stood with Lieutenant Commander Rajiv Singh, Dr. Emily Santos, and Major Alex Johnson. The mood was a mix of relief and determination as they faced the daunting challenge ahead. "Team, we've achieved a major victory, but we must remain focused," Mark began. "The Zaraki may have retreated, but they're not gone. We need to secure our planet and prepare for any future threats." Rajiv nodded, looking at the global defense map. "We need to fortify our defenses and ensure that every major city is prepared for any resurgence. We can't afford to be caught off guard again." Emily added, "We should also focus on repairing the damage and rebuilding our infrastructure. Many cities have been heavily impacted, and restoring them is crucial for maintaining morale and stability." "Alex, how are our cyber defenses holding up?" Mark asked. Alex adjusted his glasses, reviewing the latest reports. "We've managed to secure our networks and bolster our cyber capabilities. However, we need to continue advancing our technology to stay ahead of any potential threats." "All right," Mark said, formulating the plan. "Rajiv, you'll oversee the fortification efforts. Emily, you'll lead the rebuilding projects. Alex, continue enhancing our cyber defenses and develop new technologies. I'll coordinate these efforts and ensure we stay unified." The team quickly mobilized, each member taking on their respective roles with renewed purpose. Across the globe, humanity began the arduous task of rebuilding, fortifying, and preparing for the future. In Berlin, Rajiv worked with international forces to construct new defensive structures and upgrade existing ones. His efforts ensured that the city would be better protected against any future attacks. In Tokyo, Emily coordinated with engineers and architects to restore critical infrastructure. Her leadership inspired the citizens, and soon the city was buzzing with activity, a testament to human resilience and determination. Meanwhile, Alex led teams of scientists and cyber specialists in developing advanced defense systems. Their work focused on creating technologies that could detect and neutralize threats before they materialized, ensuring a safer future for all. Mark traveled between these efforts, providing support and guidance. He knew that their strength lay in unity, and that the combined efforts of his team would secure Earth's future. Months passed, and the fruits of their labor began to show. Cities were rebuilt, defenses were strengthened, and new technologies were developed. The scars of war, though still visible, were slowly healing. One evening, as the sun set over a restored Berlin, Mark gathered his team for a final meeting. "We've come a long way since the invasion," he said, his voice filled with pride. "Our efforts have made Earth stronger and more resilient. We've proven that we can stand against any threat." Rajiv, Emily, and Alex nodded in agreement. Their journey had been long and arduous, but their resolve had never wavered. "We must remain vigilant and continue to innovate," Mark continued. "The Zaraki may return, or we may face new challenges, but I have no doubt that we will overcome them, together." The team raised their glasses in a toast, a symbol of their unity and determination. They knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but they were ready for whatever came next. As Mark looked out over the city, he reflected on the journey they had undertaken. They had faced an existential threat and emerged victorious. Humanity had proven itself capable of great feats, not only in war, but in rebuilding and striving for peace. With the lessons learned and the bonds forged in battle, Mark and his team were ready to guide humanity into a future where they were not just masters of war, but also masters of peace. The battle for Earth had ended, but the mission to secure a lasting future had just begun. Mark, Rajiv, Emily, and Alex stood together, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, confident in their ability to protect their home and build a better world.